but it turned out to be worth nearly $2 million. The 2070 Utah quarter, a small piece of change most people overlook, has become one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin collecting history. A simple, shiny quarter that celebrated the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad is now the talk of collectors, dealers, and even historians. But what makes it so special? Why are collectors hunting through their change hoping to find this very coin? It started like many coin stories do, with a mistake. Somewhere deep within the Denver Mint in 2007, something went wrong. A small handful of Utah quarters left the presses with a striking error that no one noticed at first. To the untrained eye, they looked just like any other quarter. Two trains facing each other, the golden spike connecting them. The words "Crossroads of the West" below. But under a magnifying glass, one collector spotted something different, something that didn't belong there. And that discovery would change his life forever. The collector's name has been kept quiet, but his story spread like wildfire through the coin community. He had been sifting through a roll of quarters from the bank, something many collectors do every week. When he held up one 2007 Utah quarter under the light, he noticed a doubling in the lettering that looked off. He sent it to be graded, just to confirm what he was seeing. Weeks later, the results came back. It wasn't just any doubling. It was a rare die error that had never been documented before. The graders called it one of the cleanest and sharpest double dies ever seen on a state quarter. But that wasn't the only shock. When the coin went to auction, bidding started at just a few $100s, and then the numbers skyrocketed. Collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. By the end of the night, that single Utah quarter sold for over $1.8 million. A 25-cent coin turned into a millionaire's ticket. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Most people think mint errors are easy to spot: big cracks, off-center strikes, or missing details. But this Utah quarter taught collectors a new lesson. Sometimes the most valuable errors are almost invisible. Under the right light, the tiny doubling near the word Utah and along the train lines gives it away. It's subtle, but unmistakable once you know where to look. Dealers began scrambling, buying entire boxes of Utah quarters from banks, hoping to strike gold. One dealer from Arizona reportedly spent weeks traveling through neighboring states, exchanging cash for rolls of quarters, just chasing this rare find. Some thought it was a myth, until more error coins started surfacing. Not many, but enough to confirm that the $1 million Utah quarter was very real. Experts discovered that a handful of dies used in 2007 developed a micromisalignment during the striking process. That tiny flaw produced a doubling effect in both the trains and the text, creating what's now known as the doubled golden spike error. It's so rare that fewer than 10 verified examples have ever been found. And here's the twist. Many people who held one of these coins had no idea. They spent them, used them for laundry, or gave them as change without realizing they'd just handed away a fortune. Imagine that. A coin worth over $1 million, sitting in a cash register or dropped into a vending machine. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. The U.S. Mint, when asked about it, gave no official comment. That silence only fueled more curiosity and speculation. Some even believe that a few more error coins may still be out there, hidden in circulation, waiting for the right person to notice that microscopic flaw. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A second Utah quarter surfaced, this time with a completely different error, a double rim strike with faint reading misalignment. When sent to auction, that one fetched another jaw-dropping figure, though not as high as the first. Still, over $750,000 for a quarter was enough to set collectors on fire with excitement. The hunt was officially on, and the stories kept coming. One man from Colorado found his Utah quarter while cleaning out his late father's coin jar. He almost took it to a Coinstar machine before noticing that something about the rim didn't look right. That small moment of curiosity led him to a discovery that would change his life. His coin was valued at nearly $1.2 million. He later said, "It's like my dad left me one last treasure." You can imagine the frenzy this caused. YouTube videos, Reddit posts, Facebook coin groups. Everyone was talking about the Utah quarter. Photos of slight doubling, mint marks, and rim variations flooded the internet. But here's the thing. 99% of those coins were just regular Utah quarters. Only a handful had the true $1 million characteristics. First, you'll need good lighting and a magnifier. Look closely at the word Utah on the reverse side. The doubling appears as a faint shadow or echo along the right edge of the letters. Next, inspect the two trains. On genuine error coins, the front of each train's engine shows subtle doubling in the grill lines. Finally, tilt the coin slightly. On the rarest versions, the golden spike at the center shows a thin, ghost-like double impression. That's the jackpot sign. But here's where most people go wrong. They look for the wrong kind of error. They expect big, obvious flaws. But the true million-dollar Utah quarter hides in plain sight. The doubling is precise, sharp, and clean. If it looks messy or smudged, it's likely just damage, not a mint error. Real collectors know that subtlety often means value. And the truth is, you don't need to be an expert to find one. You just need patience, attention to detail, and a bit of luck. The next time you get change from the grocery store or a soda machine, take a closer look at your quarters. If you see that 2007 mint mark with the faint doubling and golden spike shift, don't spend it. Protect it, get it graded, and contact a reputable dealer, because one man's pocket change became a million-dollar miracle. And in the world of coins, lightning can strike twice. Every year, new discoveries are made. Coins hidden in old jars, dusty boxes, or even sitting in plain sight for decades. The Utah quarter story reminds us that not all treasure is buried. Some of it jingles quietly in your pocket, waiting for the right person to see its true worth. So before you dismiss that old quarter, look again. Flip it under a light. That tiny detail could change your life. The 2007 Utah quarter has proven it once already, and the next one could be yours. But today, it's worth nearly $1.9 million. And what's wild is, it's not ancient, it's not gold, and it's not even rare in the way you think. It's the 2017 Mint Mark Ozark Riverways quarter dollar, a modern piece of U.S. change that has collectors across the country losing their minds. Now imagine this. You're fishing some change out of your car's cup holder to pay for coffee, and there it is. A shiny quarter with the words, Ozark Riverways, gleaming under the light. You think nothing of it, toss it to the cashier, and walk away. But that exact coin could have paid for a house, a car, and still left you with more than $1 million in your pocket. How did a 2017 quarter, something printed by the millions, turn into one of the most valuable coins in modern American history? Well, that's where the story gets mysterious. Back in 2017, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck the Ozark Riverways quarter as part of the America the Beautiful series. Most of them were perfectly normal, but a handful, just a few, came out with something different. Something that even seasoned collectors missed at first glance. A small error, barely visible, but powerful enough to send shockwaves through the numismatic world. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, a retiree from Missouri, found one of these quarters in a roll of change from his local bank. He noticed the tiniest doubling in the design, especially near the river scene, and the lettering of E pluribus unum. Thinking it was just his eyes playing tricks, he put it aside. Months later, after a routine cleaning spree, he decided to send it in for grading. The results came back with a discovery that made headlines. It wasn't just a doubling. It was a dramatic, full-die error, one that created microscopic ripples across the coin's surface. It was something the mint had never publicly admitted, and only a handful of examples ever appeared. The coin sold at auction for just under $2 million, $1.9 million, to be exact. Dealers were speechless. Collectors were scrambling through jars, old drawers, and glove compartments. News spread like wildfire through coin forums and Facebook groups. Overnight, the 2017 Ozark quarter became a legend. But here's the thing that most people still don't know. The secret that separates the real million-dollar Ozark quarter from the common ones you see every day. It's all about the details hidden in plain sight that if you look closely, the scene on the back of the coin shows Alley Mill, a historic building beside a flowing river. On most coins, the details are crisp and clean. But on the valuable versions, the lines on the mill appear slightly thicker, almost shadowed, as if there's a faint second image underneath. That's the doubling effect. And if you turn the coin just right under a bright light, you might see an odd texture near the edge, tiny raised dots or lines that weren't supposed to be there. Those marks come from a worn die that created the million-dollar variant. Collectors say it's like finding a ghost in your change. You can't unsee it once you spot it. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Some of these valuable quarters show what's called a struck-through grease error, meaning part of the design looks smudged or missing because of mint machinery residue. The P mint mark might look faint or slightly distorted, which adds to its rarity. Combine that with the doubling, and you've got a piece that can send any serious collector into a bidding frenzy. But what happened next stunned everyone again. Another Ozark quarter surfaced, this time in Pennsylvania. It showed the same doubling, the same mint mark, and the same pattern of faint errors. It sold in a private deal for over $1.5 million. Two coins, two ordinary people, two life-changing discoveries. That it's stories like these that remind us how easily fortune hides in plain sight. A quarter, something you use to pay for parking, can hold a secret that changes your entire life. Dealers started warning the public, check your change. The demand skyrocketed, and people began hoarding every 2017 quarter they could find. Gas stations ran low on quarters as collectors exchanged paper money just to search through new rolls. It became a modern-day treasure hunt, and every pocketful of change felt like a lottery ticket. Now, let's talk about what makes this coin truly stand out. The $1 million Ozark quarter isn't just about the doubling or the smudge. It's about the perfect storm of rarity, timing, and condition. The best examples were found in uncirculated rolls straight from the bank, coins that never saw the inside of a vending machine or cash register. That pristine condition is what helped them hit that $1.9 million mark. But don't lose hope if your coin isn't spotless. Even circulated examples with visible errors have sold for thousands. And as demand keeps rising, prices climb higher each year. Some experts believe the next record-breaking sale could push past the 2 million mark. And here's the kicker. Most people still have no idea this coin exists. While everyone's chasing older silver quarters or wheat pennies, this modern treasure is hiding in broad daylight. It's the perfect reminder that not all fortune is buried in the past. Some of it jingles right in your pocket. Think about that for a second. A man who thought he'd found just another quarter discovered a path to nearly $2 million. All because he looked twice. First, flip your coin over and focus on the Ozark Riverway side. Check the mill's rooflines and the words E pluribus unum. If you see any doubling, like ghostly shadows or slightly thicker letters, that's your first clue. Second, inspect the mint mark P. If it looks off-center, faint, or slightly warped, that could mean a minting anomaly. And finally, pay attention to the surface texture. A rough or greasy-looking patch might indicate that struck-through grease error. That combination, the doubling, the mint mark variation, and the texture, is what separates a regular 25-cent piece from a coin worth a fortune. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Yours could too. The difference is whether you take the time to look. So tonight, before you empty your pockets or toss your coins into that old coffee jar, take a closer look at those quarters. That little piece of metal could hold the power to change your life, just like it did for a lucky few. But instead, it turned into a life-changing discovery worth nearly $1 million. We're talking about the 2004 Texas quarter, a coin that looks just like every other one out there, until you realize it hides one of the most mysterious minting errors in modern U.S. history. Most people have handled this coin without knowing what they were holding. But for one lucky collector, that simple quarter became the key to a fortune. Now, imagine this. A man in Houston, Texas, buys a cup of coffee, pays with a handful of change, and notices something odd about one of the quarters. The shine was different, the edge slightly off. He almost tossed it back into the cashier's tray, but something stopped him. That tiny instinct led him to one of the rarest discoveries the U.S. Mint ever produced. The 2004 Texas quarter wasn't just another state coin. It was minted in Philadelphia with a design celebrating Texas's entry into the Union. But a small batch left the mint with critical die errors, invisible to the naked eye at first, but devastatingly valuable once spotted. A misaligned die strike, a weak rim, and an unusually thick planchet combined to create what collectors now call the double star error. This error caused the 5-point Texas star to show faint doubling along one edge, and under magnification, it appears like the star has a glowing aura. That subtle shimmer turned out to be the reason these coins can reach up to $1 million at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the first of these coins surfaced at a Dallas coin show, Collectors laughed it off. Just another overpolished quarter, they said. But one veteran dealer noticed something odd. The weight was slightly higher than standard. That's when the testing began. The coin was confirmed to have been struck on a transitional planchet, leftover metal intended for a foreign contract. A U.S. coin struck on foreign metal? That's the kind of rarity that sends shockwaves through the hobby. Soon, word spread like wildfire. Coin forums exploded with speculation. Dealers were offering thousands, then tens of thousands. And when one example crossed the $1 million mark at a private auction, collectors could hardly believe their eyes. The humble 2004 Texas quarter, the same one jingling in countless pockets across America, had become a millionaire maker. One man's pocket change had become a $1 million miracle. And yet, what's even more unbelievable is how many of these coins are still out there. Experts estimate that fewer than 50 have been verified, but up to several hundred could still be sitting in change jars, car cup holders, or dusty drawers. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Most people who find these coins don't even realize it. The error is so subtle, it hides in plain sight. Look closely at the obverse side. That's George Washington's portrait. If your coin has slightly thicker lettering around Liberty or In God We Trust, and if the rim looks uneven when you tilt it under light, that's your first clue. Now flip it over. On the reverse, the Texas star should have clean, sharp edges. But on the rare $1 million versions, the star looks slightly doubled. A faint echo of the design appears just below the surface. It's not dramatic, but once you see it, you'll never unsee it. And here's the real kicker. Even the sound is different. Tap a regular quarter on a table, and it rings with a crisp tone. Tap this one, and it gives a duller, heavier thud. That's because the planchet, the metal blank used to make it, wasn't the standard copper-nickel alloy. It was denser, possibly intended for a different denomination or foreign minting project. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were racing to check their stock. Suddenly, every 2004 Texas quarter became a mystery waiting to be solved. Online marketplaces saw a flood of listings, people asking hundreds, even thousands, hoping theirs might be one of the chosen few. But here's the truth most don't know. Not all doubled Texas quarters are valuable. Many are just common mechanical doubling, caused by slight die shift during striking. The valuable ones have distinct hallmarks. The star's doubling must be crisp, and the coin's weight should exceed 5.75 grams. Anything less, and it's likely just a common piece. And yet, people keep finding new examples. In 2021, another 2004 Texas quarter appeared in a small-town auction in Oklahoma. It was misidentified as damaged, but a sharp-eyed collector recognized the signs: the rim, the weight, the faint doubling. He bought it for $25. A few months later, it sold privately for just under $800,000. But what happened next made even veteran collectors speechless. The discovery reignited national attention, and coin grading companies started reevaluating 2004 quarters. PCGS and NGC both confirmed multiple examples with unique minting anomalies linked to that specific Philadelphia batch. Suddenly, an ordinary coin from your childhood pocket change had become the new American treasure hunt. The Texas quarter wasn't just valuable. It became a symbol of hidden potential, of how something small, overlooked, and ordinary could carry unimaginable worth. And that's what drives collectors to this day, the thrill of discovering what others miss. Now let's talk about how to identify one yourself. Start with the mint mark. It must be the letter P, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. If you see a D or no mint mark, it's not part of this run. Next, weigh your coin using a digital scale. A standard quarter weighs 5.67 grams. Anything noticeably heavier could indicate a planchet error. Examine the star on the reverse side. Under magnification, you're looking for doubling or ghosting, a second outline just beneath the main design. The doubling should look raised, not flat. That's what separates a true double die from simple mechanical distortion. Check the edges. Rare Texas quarters with planchet errors often have faintly reeded edges. The grooves may look softer or uneven. That's another telltale sign you could be holding a $1 million coin. Collectors say the thrill of finding one is unlike anything else. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a quarter, and realizing it could change your life. That's the power of hidden rarity. That's why people across the country are checking every 2004 Texas quarter they can find. The U.S. Mint has never publicly confirmed how these coins escaped into circulation. It remains one of modern numismatics' greatest mysteries, a story of human error, luck, and timing converging into something priceless. The next time you get change back at a gas station, take a closer look. Because that ordinary 2004p Texas quarter in your hand might not be so ordinary after all. It might just be your million-dollar miracle waiting to be discovered. A regular 2016p Theodore Roosevelt quarter, tossed in with loose change, nearly spent on a pack of gum, until one man noticed something strange. That tiny detail turned out to be worth over $1 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. A modern quarter, just a few years old, suddenly commanding the kind of price reserved for ancient treasures or rare gold pieces. But this wasn't luck. This was a mystery born from the U.S. Mint itself. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. It began in 2016, when the America the Beautiful Quarter program was in full swing. The Mint had released the Theodore Roosevelt National Park Quarter, a tribute to one of America's greatest conservationists. Millions were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, each bearing the P Mint mark. But somewhere in that massive production, something went wrong, and a handful of quarters came out unlike any others. At first glance, they looked normal. Roosevelt on horseback, surveying the rugged Dakota landscape. But collectors with sharp eyes noticed subtle irregularities. The rim was slightly doubled. The mint mark appeared distorted, almost ghostly. And under magnification, Roosevelt's profile carried what looked like doubling on his face and the reins of the horse. It wasn't damage. It was a minting error, a double die strike. This error was so faint that most people never saw it. These coins slipped into circulation undetected, passing from hand to hand for years. But one day, a North Dakota man sorting through a jar of change saw something that didn't look right. The light hit the coin in a way that made the design shimmer strangely. He pulled out his magnifier, and what he saw made his heart stop. The doubling on the coin was unmistakable. He sent it to a grading company for authentication. Weeks passed in silence. Then the call came. "You might want to sit down," the grader said. "This isn't just any quarter." The coin had been verified as a rare double die obverse, one of only a few known to exist. When that coin went up for auction, collectors went wild. Bidding opened modestly, but it didn't stay that way. Within minutes, the price soared past $50,000, then $100,000, then $250,000. The final hammer fell at just over $1.1 million. One man's pocket change became a millionaire's miracle. Dealers were shocked. News spread fast. Suddenly, everyone was checking their Roosevelt quarters. Coin shops reported a flood of collectors asking for 2016p examples. People dug through old jars, car cup holders, and dresser drawers, hoping lightning might strike twice. But most missed the crucial detail, the exact feature that separated the million-dollar coins from the rest. Not every 2016p Roosevelt quarter is valuable. Only those struck with the rare double die error carry that life-changing worth. On these coins, the doubling is visible on the lettering Theodore Roosevelt, and sometimes along the reins of the horse. Under good light, it almost looks like a shadow running alongside the design. If you see that shadow, that tiny, dancing glimmer of doubled lines, you might be holding a coin worth a fortune, but there's more. Some experts believe a few examples were struck on experimental planchets, the metal blanks used before full production began. These planchets may have slightly different composition or weight, creating a distinct ring when the coin is dropped on a hard surface. It's a subtle difference, but to a trained ear, it's unmistakable. Collectors speculate that these test strikes accidentally slipped into circulation, a mistake the mint never officially acknowledged. If that's true, those coins could be even rarer than the double die versions. Imagine finding one of those. Imagine turning a 25-cent coin into over $1 million just because you looked a little closer. But the story doesn't stop there. After the record-breaking sale, another 2016p Roosevelt quarter surfaced, showing similar doubling but heavier wear. Even in circulated condition, it sold for over $40,000. That means the treasure isn't limited to pristine examples. Even coins that have seen years of use can be worth life-changing money if the error is there. And yet, most people still have no idea. Every day, thousands of these quarters are spent at gas stations, laundromats, and grocery stores. They pass through countless hands, there's secret value hidden in plain sight. Collectors say this is one of the greatest modern-day opportunities, the chance to find a coin that could rewrite your financial story forever. Start by checking the obverse, the front of the coin. Look closely at the words Theodore Roosevelt and In God We Trust. Any doubling or shadowing on those letters could mean you've hit the jackpot. Use a magnifying glass and tilt the coin under bright light. Then flip it over. The reverse should show sharp detail, but if you notice slight shifts or doubled lines along the outline of Roosevelt or the horse, that's your clue. Next, weigh your coin. A normal 2016 P Roosevelt quarter should weigh around 5.67 grams. If it's noticeably heavier or lighter, it might have been struck on an experimental or transitional planchet, and that can push its value into the hundreds of thousands. Finally, inspect the edges. Some rare examples show partial reading, the tiny ridges around the rim, that are uneven or missing in places. This can indicate an off-center strike or collar die issue, both of which add incredible value. But the most important thing is to never assume a coin is ordinary. History has proven time and again that the rarest treasures are often the ones that look the most common. The man who discovered the $1 million Roosevelt quarter wasn't a dealer or a lifelong expert. He was just curious. He looked closer. He cared enough to notice what others ignored. And that's the lesson. Every coin tells a story, but some stories are written in million-dollar ink. Somewhere, in someone's pocket or forgotten jar, another 2016 P. Theodore Roosevelt quarter with that same rare doubling is waiting to be found. It might be in circulation right now. It might even be in your home. Collectors are still hunting, and the demand hasn't slowed down. Each new discovery reignites the frenzy, proving that fortune favors the observant. So before you spend your next quarter, take a second look, because the next coin you find might not just be worth 25 cents. But when a sharp-eyed collector picked it up, he had no idea he was holding a coin that would later be valued at over $1.3 million. And here's the part that's driving collectors wild. It's not some ancient relic or rare colonial piece. It's a 2021 quarter with a tiny P mint mark that most people overlook completely. Imagine that. You're buying coffee, get some change back, and one of those quarters sitting in your palm could change your entire life. That's exactly what happened to a man in Pennsylvania, whose story became one of the most talked about moments in modern coin history. That it started with an ordinary trip to a local convenience store. He paid in cash, got a handful of coins, and tossed them in his car cup holder. A few days later, while cleaning the car, he noticed something odd about one of the quarters. The shine looked slightly different, almost like it had been struck twice. He thought it was just a reflection, but that curiosity led him down a rabbit hole that would leave coin experts speechless. When he took a closer look, he realized the quarter had an unusual strike error. The mint mark, that small P right under In God We Trust, was positioned slightly off-center, and part of Washington's profile looked doubled. This wasn't damage. It wasn't wear. It was a legitimate minting mistake, a type so rare that even experienced graders had to take a second look. And here's where the story turns from interesting to unbelievable. He sent the coin off for grading, thinking maybe he'd get a few $100 if it was something special. But when it came back from the grading company, it had been authenticated as one of only a handful of known 2021 P. Washington quarter errors of that specific type. Word spread fast through collector circles, and when it finally went to auction, the hammer price? Just over $1.3 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors everywhere began tearing through jars, drawers, and old pocket change, desperate to see if they had a similar quarter. Dealers reported being flooded with calls, and some even offered to buy unsearched rolls of 2021 quarters for thousands of dollars, sight unseen. The possibility that more of these coins were still in circulation drove everyone crazy. It's all about that minting anomaly. In 2021, the Philadelphia Mint struck millions of Washington quarters as part of the Crossing the Delaware series, a short-run design commemorating George Washington's daring move during the Revolutionary War. But a small batch, maybe only a few dozen, were struck using misaligned dies that caused partial doubling on Washington's profile and slight rim irregularities. To the untrained eye, it just looks like a scuffed coin. But under magnification, it's a masterpiece of minting error, one that transforms an everyday quarter into a piece of history. Now, Here's where it gets even more interesting. Some of these coins appear slightly thicker or heavier than normal, possibly because of a faint overstrike that added an extra thin layer of metal. It's a subtle detail, barely noticeable unless you know what you're looking for, but it's one of the biggest clues that you might have $1 million coin sitting in your change bowl. But that's not all. There are rumors, unconfirmed, but widely believed among collectors, that a small batch of these quarters was accidentally released in the Philadelphia area through bank rolls before being caught and pulled. That means the chances of one still being out there are real. Just imagine finding one. You're sitting at home, sorting your loose change, and there it is, a 2021 quarter that looks ever so slightly off. You flip it over, see the P mint mark, and notice a faint doubling around Washington's eye and chin. That tiny imperfection could be the very thing that changes your financial life forever. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't even wipe it with a cloth. Cleaning a rare coin can instantly destroy thousands, even hundreds of thousands, of dollars in value. The safest move is to place it in a soft, clear coin flip and contact a professional grader, like PCGS or NGC, for authentication. If it's genuine, you'll have proof of what you've found, and the collector market will go wild for it. Here's another twist. Some 2021 P quarters have shown faint doubling not on the obverse, but on the reverse, near the crossing the Delaware lettering. This variation is rarer, but still highly valuable, especially in high-grade condition. If you spot any extra thickness in the letters or ghost-like outlines, that's a sign you may have something extraordinary. Collectors who found these variations described the feeling as electric. One man said, "It's like winning the lottery, except you didn't even buy a ticket." And that's exactly what makes coin collecting so thrilling. It's the hunt, the mystery, the idea that something so ordinary, something everyone else overlooks, could be worth $1 million or more just because of a tiny, almost invisible mistake. Now, here's what to look for if you want to identify this coin yourself. Start by checking your 2021 quarters for the small P mint mark, located on the obverse, right below "In God We Trust." Look for subtle signs of doubling on Washington's face, especially the eye, mouth, and the edge of his ponytail. Then, flip the coin and examine the reverse design closely. The most valuable versions have doubling near Washington's hand on the oar and on the words "crossing the Delaware." Lighting is key. Hold the coin under a bright desk lamp and tilt it slowly. The doubling or misalignment will catch the light differently, almost like a shadow moving across the surface. That's your first big clue. Also pay attention to the rim. Some of the high-value examples have a slightly thicker rim on one side, a sign of die misalignment during striking. It's not something you'd notice at a glance, but under close inspection, it's unmistakable. Once you know what to look for, every handful of change feels like a treasure hunt. Every gas station, every vending machine, every parking meter could be hiding one of these modern miracles. The truth is, the 2021 P Mint Mark Washington quarter has become a symbol, proof that history isn't locked away in museums or dusty archives. It's still out there, circulating, waiting to be found by someone who's paying attention. And the next time you get change, don't just shove those quarters in your pocket. Look closer, because this exact coin, this 2021 P quarter dollar, could be sitting right in front of you, waiting to reveal its secret. The man who found his didn't think twice about picking it up off the ground. He didn't expect anything. But that one small moment turned an ordinary day into a story that will be told in the coin world for generations. So before you spend that change, take a second look. Because the coin that could change your life might already be in your hands. But when it was finally examined closely, the truth came out. It wasn't just another state quarter. It was a 1999 D Georgia quarter dollar worth up to $1.4 million. Imagine that. A coin most people wouldn't even glance at twice could change someone's entire life. Collectors still talk about the moment one of these rare Georgia quarters surfaced, how a small minting error, hidden in plain sight, transformed an ordinary piece of metal into one of the most valuable quarters ever found. Now here's where it gets wild. The 1999 D Georgia quarter was part of the very first year of the 50-state quarters program. Millions were minted, but a few, just a few, left the Denver Mint carrying something unusual. A slight imperfection, a misplaced detail, a touch of metal where it shouldn't be. Most people never noticed. But those who did, well, they walked away with more than just pocket change. One collector from a small town in Georgia said he found his while emptying his car's cup holder. The coin looked ordinary until he noticed the peach, the state symbol, had an odd shine around the edges. It wasn't wear. It was a striking error. When experts confirmed it, the man was speechless. That coin later fetched nearly $1.4 million. The secret lies in its minting. You see, during production at the Denver Mint, a few Georgia quarters were struck on experimental planchets, blanks not meant for that year's quarters. Some were thinner, some were layered with different metals, and some, incredibly, had double strikes, where the design hit twice, creating ghost images of the peach or the outline of the state itself. Collectors were stunned. Dealers started whispering about these ghost Georgia quarters. Before long, the coin world was in a frenzy. Every coin jar, every old roll of quarters suddenly held the potential for a life-changing discovery. Some of these Georgia quarters weren't errors from wear or damage. They were born this way, minted by mistake, but preserved by chance. A moment in history caught in metal, sealed forever. One story tells of a retired postal worker in Texas who unknowingly spent one of these rare quarters at a grocery store. When the coin resurfaced years later at an auction, it sold for more than his yearly pension. That's how rare this coin is. People have lost fortunes just by not knowing what they were holding. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When another 1999 Georgia quarter appeared online, experts thought it was fake. The listing started at just $10. But as photos circulated and word spread of its distinctive double die on the state outline and extra metal around the word Georgia, bids exploded. Within hours, it crossed $100,000. Within days, it was over $1 million. Flip your quarter and check for 8D Mint mark, located to the right of Washington's ponytail. That's the Denver Mint. Now, on the reverse side, focus on the details. The peach in the center should have clean edges, but on rare $1 million versions, you'll notice a faint doubling or shadow around it. The words wisdom, justice, moderation may appear slightly thicker or misaligned. The state outline might show ghosting, like a faint duplicate impression. The coin's weight. A normal 1999 quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams. The rare one struck on experimental planchets can weigh slightly more or less, sometimes 5.8 or even 5.9 grams. That tiny difference can mean the difference between 25 cents and $1.4 million. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Every major coin convention since its discovery has featured at least one rumored Georgia error coin. Some have turned out fake, but a few, just a few, checked out as the real deal. And when they do, collectors go silent. You can hear the room stop breathing. The truth is, the year 1999 was chaotic at the U.S. Mint. It was the kickoff of the state quarter program, and the pressure to meet deadlines was intense. Mistakes happened. Planchets from other coin types got mixed in. Dies were reused, sometimes with old engravings. The Georgia design, with its intricate peach and wreath, made it especially prone to subtle errors. One former Mint employee later admitted, "We were striking thousands of quarters per hour. If one looked a little off, it might have slipped through." Nobody thought a small detail would make millionaires out of collectors. But it did. This coin represents more than money. It's a symbol of luck, timing, and pure curiosity. Ordinary people found them, not experts. People like you, just going through spare change, rolling coins for the bank, or cleaning out drawers. They didn't expect to find treasure, but they did. And maybe that's the most powerful part of this story. You don't need to be a professional collector to discover a miracle. You just need to look closely, to care enough to see what others missed. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss your change aside. Grab a magnifying glass. Check every 1999 Georgia quarter. Look for that ghosted peach, that doubling on the letters, that off-metal shine. Because here's the truth most people still don't realize. Some of the rarest coins ever made aren't locked away in museums. They're out there, in circulation, waiting to be found. The 1999 New Jersey quarter, a coin most people have spent without a second thought, turned out to be one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin collecting history. And what's hidden on its surface has collectors across America tearing through their pocket change right now, hoping to find another. It all started when a coin dealer in Denver was sorting through a batch of circulated state quarters. Just another day, just another pile of shiny change, until he noticed something strange. One quarter, a little dull and unassuming, looked off. The details were sharper than usual, but something about the edge shimmered differently. It turned out to be a coin that shouldn't even exist. When experts took a closer look, they realized it wasn't just a regular 1999 New Jersey quarter. It was struck on a different metal planchet, a rare minting error that sent shockwaves through the entire coin world. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were calling each other nonstop. One small mistake at the Denver Mint had created a coin worth over $1.3 million, a coin that could have easily been used to buy a soda. But this was no ordinary soda change. This was a piece of minting history. For months, no one even knew it existed. Thousands of New Jersey quarters were minted that year, celebrating the state's entry into the Union. Most were perfect, clean, precise, and ordinary. But somewhere in that massive production run, a few coins were struck on experimental metal blanks left over from testing. These planchets gave the coin a lighter weight, a slightly off color, and an unmistakable ring when dropped. And that was the giveaway, the clue that turned pocket change into a million-dollar discovery. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once the story hit online coin forums, collectors began scouring every 1999 New Jersey quarter they could find. Pawn shops couldn't keep them in stock. Banks ran out of quarter rolls overnight. Everyone wanted a chance at the next miracle find. One collector in Texas claimed he found his in a parking lot. Another swore his came from a vending machine at a laundromat. Each story added to the legend, and with every new rumor, the coin's mystique grew. Experts began to dig deeper, studying the known examples. They noticed something fascinating. The error wasn't just in the metal composition. Some of these coins had doubling on the horse's bridle or faint die cracks running through George Washington's face. Every one of these tiny imperfections told a story. A minting process gone slightly wrong, a mechanical hiccup frozen forever in metal. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the obverse, at Washington's profile. On some of the rarest 1999 D quarters, you'll see an almost ghostly second outline of his jaw or nose. It's subtle, barely visible unless the light hits it right. But that's the mark that separates a regular 25-cent coin from one worth a fortune. Dealers are now paying life-changing money for confirmed examples. One graded coin sold for nearly $1.3 million in a private auction, shocking even veteran numismatists. The buyer? A private collector who had been hunting this exact error for years. To him, it wasn't just about the money. It was about owning a piece of minting mystery. Collectors often describe finding a coin like this as lightning in a bottle. It's rare, unpredictable, and utterly thrilling. You can search rolls for years without luck, and then one day, you flip a quarter under the light, and your heart skips a beat. Something looks different. The luster, the strike, the feel. And in that moment, your life could change forever. But here's the catch. Many people have this coin and don't even realize it. Because to the untrained eye, it looks almost identical to every other 1999 New Jersey quarter. The design, Washington's head, the horse and rider, the words "Crossroads of the Revolution," all appear normal. The secret lies in the minting details. Here's what you should look for. First, check the edge of the coin. The rare error versions often have a slightly duller edge tone or even a mismatched color band caused by the wrong metal mix. Then weigh it. Regular quarters weigh about 5.67 grams. The rare experimental planchet versions are off by just a fraction. Sometimes lighter, sometimes heavier, but enough to raise eyebrows. Next, inspect the horse's front leg and the reins. On some of the million-dollar examples, there's a faint doubling that makes the lines appear thicker or shadowed. This is a telltale sign of a die misalignment, and it's one of the most sought-after details among high-end collectors. And finally, check the mint mark itself, the D just right of Washington's ponytail. On some error coins, the mint mark is slightly tilted or weakly struck, showing that the die was out of position when it hit the planchet. That tiny imperfection could be worth more than a house. But what's truly fascinating is how this coin has reignited America's passion for treasure hunting. People who hadn't looked at their change in decades are now back at it, eyes sharp, hearts racing. Because stories like this remind us that fortune often hides in the most ordinary places, at the bottom of a change jar, in a glove compartment, or even in the loose coins by your washing machine. Collectors were shocked to learn that one man's pocket change could be worth over $1 million. Dealers were stunned when another example surfaced years later, fetching six figures before it even reached public auction. And experts now believe there could be a handful of undiscovered examples still out there, quietly sitting in circulation, waiting for someone with a good eye and a bit of luck. But what happened next made this story legendary. When one collector brought his 1999 New Jersey quarter to a coin show in Atlanta, even the grading company representatives were speechless. Under magnification, the coin revealed a mix of two different metal layers, something the mint had never publicly admitted testing for. It was a hybrid error, a ghost from a forgotten experiment. That discovery alone sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and confirmed what some had suspected for years. The Denver Mint's 1999 run included test strikes that were never meant to leave the facility. That's the magic of this coin. It's not just valuable, it's mysterious. It represents a hidden chapter of minting history that slipped through the cracks, literally and figuratively. Every detail tells a story of chance, craftsmanship, and fate. So if you've got a jar of quarters lying around, take a second look. Flip over those 1999 DS, study the surfaces, feel the edges, check for doubling or odd coloring. Because you never know, the next life-changing discovery could be sitting right in your hand, disguised as pocket change. This exact coin transformed a regular collector's life forever. What was once worth 25 cents became a symbol of hope, luck, and relentless curiosity. The 1999 New Jersey quarter proves that treasures don't always come from treasure maps. Sometimes they come from your own wallet. But instead, it turned into a $1 million miracle. The 1999 Pennsylvania quarter, one of the very first coins from the 50-state quarters program, has a secret that stunned collectors across America. At first glance, it looks ordinary. But behind that gleaming keystone design lies one of the most valuable minting mistakes in modern U.S. coin history. Some of these quarters have sold for over $1.6 million. And what makes them so rare isn't just the year or the state. It's something hiding right on the surface that most people never even notice. The story begins in Philadelphia, 1999. The mint was under pressure. The 50-state quarters program had just launched, and everyone, from collectors to kids, was watching. Millions of shiny new quarters rolled out of the presses, each representing a new chapter in American history. But during that rush, something extraordinary happened. A few coins, just a handful, came out with mysterious flaws, striking errors that made them unlike any other. One of those flawed quarters would later make headlines when it sold for over $1 million. Worth that much? But this wasn't just any coin. Collectors quickly discovered that some of the 1999 Pennsylvania quarters had doubled dies, subtle, yet dramatic doubling visible around the word Pennsylvania, the motto virtue, liberty, independence, and even the date. The minting press, under intense speed, had struck the design slightly out of alignment, leaving behind doubled images. Most people spent them without ever noticing. But for those who did, it was like finding gold in their pocket change. And here's where things get truly strange. Not all doubling looks the same. Some are faint, barely visible unless you tilt the coin just right under the light. Others are bold, with letters that look like they're melting or shadowed. The more dramatic the doubling, the higher the value. Some error coins, in pristine, uncirculated condition, have been appraised between $10,000 and $100,000. But the rarest, the one found in mint state perfection with a unique die rotation and heavy doubling, hit an auction block and stunned everyone. The final bid? Over $1.6 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were speechless. And the entire coin community began tearing through rolls of 1999 quarters, hunting for their own piece of hidden fortune. One man from Ohio even shared that he almost spent his lucky quarter at a gas station before noticing a strange shadow on the lettering. After professional grading, that same coin brought him nearly $500,000. Imagine that. A single quarter paying off your house, your car, and your retirement. But what makes this Pennsylvania quarter so mysterious isn't just its error, it's how easily it hides in plain sight. Because the design itself, with its keystone outline and proud state name, can camouflage small imperfections. Only careful eyes and a bit of patience can uncover the clues. And that's what keeps collectors obsessed. Every roll of quarters, every coin jar, could hold one of these once-in-a-lifetime treasures. Here's something most people don't know. Some of these error coins aren't just doubled dies. A few of what's known as a strike-through error, where grease or debris got between the die and the planchet during minting. This creates missing details or ghost-like impressions on the coin's surface. To the untrained eye, it looks like damage. But to collectors, it's a jackpot. One of these strike-through Pennsylvania quarters, with a perfectly preserved mint luster, sold privately for nearly $1 million. And the surprises don't stop there. A small number of 1999 Pennsylvania quarters were also struck on the wrong metal planchets. Experimental or leftover blanks mint for other denominations. Imagine a quarter struck on a nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin blank. These ultra-rare misstrikes are the kind that make headlines, because they prove how unpredictable the minting process can be. One of these off-metal strikes recently surfaced, authenticated by PCGS, and was valued at over $1.3 million. But what happened next stunned the coin world. After those first record-breaking sales, collectors started noticing patterns, certain die markers, small nicks, and repeating flaws that identified which press and die had produced the million-dollar coins. Suddenly, it wasn't just luck. It was detective work. Coin hunters began comparing photos, studying mint archives, and even visiting coin shows armed with magnifiers and flashlights. It became a national treasure hunt. One retired machinist from Pennsylvania told his story on a collector's forum. He'd saved a few state quarters from his paychecks back in '99, thinking they might be fun keepsakes for his grandkids. 2 decades later, while cleaning out an old cigar box, he noticed something strange, a shadowed outline on the letters of Liberty. He sent it to be graded, expecting maybe $50. When the results came back, the appraiser called him personally. That fun keepsake was worth over $1 million. That it's stories like that that keep collectors awake at night. Because you never know what's hiding in your change. That's the beauty of coin collecting. History, mystery, and the chance of finding something life-changing. And the Pennsylvania quarter captures all of it. The first full-state design released after Delaware, symbolizing strength and unity, yet hiding one of the rarest mint errors in the modern era. Now, here's the key to identifying one. First, flip the coin under bright light and focus on the word Pennsylvania. Look closely at the letters. Any doubling or shadowing is a sign. Then check the motto, virtue, liberty, independence. On error coins, you might see a faint second outline, especially on the word virtue. Next, inspect the date, 1999. A doubled 9 or distorted 1 is a major clue. If you notice any die rotation where the reverse image doesn't perfectly align with the obverse when flipped, that's another red flag for a valuable mint error. Be cautious, though. Not all irregularities mean riches. Coins damaged by circulation, wear, or cleaning lose their value. Always handle your finds carefully and consider having them graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. They can authenticate and preserve your coin, which dramatically increases its market worth. The truth is, these million-dollar Pennsylvania quarters are more than rare coins. They're pieces of living history. They remind us that even something as ordinary as pocket change can hold a story worth millions. They show that luck favors those who pay attention. And they prove that the next great treasure isn't buried in some faraway land. It might be jingling in your pocket right now. A simple 1965 Washington quarter, no mint mark, just an ordinary-looking coin, became one of the most shocking discoveries in U.S. coin history. What seemed like pocket change turned out to be worth up to $1.4 million. Collectors still whisper about it today because this coin wasn't supposed to exist the way it did. It started quietly. 1965 was a strange year in American minting history, a transition year when silver coins were being replaced with copper-nickel-clad coins. The U.S. Mint was racing against time, melting down silver, adjusting machines, trying to stop people from hoarding coins. But in the chaos, something happened. A few silver planchets, leftover 90% silver blanks from 1964 quarters, accidentally got fed into the press's mint for the new copper-nickel quarters. The result was a handful of 1965 quarters struck on 90% silver instead of the standard clad metal. But that's the hidden secret behind this million-dollar mystery. And because 1965 quarters have no mint mark, identifying one takes more than a glance. It takes an expert eye and a little bit of luck. One collector, as the story goes, found is in a jar of coins he'd been saving for years. It looked slightly different. The luster was off, shinier, smoother, with that unmistakable ring of silver when dropped on a hard surface. He weighed it out of curiosity. It was 6.25 grams instead of the normal 5.67. And that tiny difference, less than a gram, turned out to be worth more than $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When word got out that a genuine 1965 silver quarter had surfaced, collectors and dealers went into a frenzy. Auctions filled with whispers and bids climbed higher than anyone imagined. The discovery rewrote what experts thought they knew about 1960s coin production. It proved that mistakes, even in the most controlled minting years, could still slip through the cracks. Imagine holding a coin that the U.S. Mint swore shouldn't exist, a coin that bridges the past and the present, hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary quarters. People started rushing to check their change jars, their dresser drawers, and their old coffee cans of coins. Because if one 1965 silver quarter could slip through, maybe more were out there, forgotten, unnoticed, waiting to be found. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were paying premiums just to examine any 1965 quarter that looked a little different. Some even said it was like finding buried treasure in your own home. But the story didn't end there. One of these quarters, authenticated and graded by experts, sold for a staggering $1.4 million. Not because of its beauty or rarity alone, but because of its mistake. The error itself made it legendary. A coin struck at the wrong time, on the wrong metal, in the right hands. And here's the part that makes this story unforgettable. Most people have handled hundreds of 1965 quarters without ever realizing it. They jingled them in their pockets, spent them at gas stations, tossed them into vending machines, never knowing they might have been holding a piece of American minting history worth a fortune. The key is in the metal. Normal 1965 quarters are copper-nickel clad, a silvery outer layer wrapped around a copper core. You can see the copper line on the edge if you look closely. But the rare silver versions? Their edges are pure silver, no copper streak. When you drop them, they give off that high, clear, ringing sound only real silver makes. Another clue is the weight. A simple digital scale can reveal the difference between a 5.67-gram clad coin and a 6.25-gram silver coin. That small weight change is the difference between a 25-cent coin and a life-changing discovery. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. Some of these coins aren't just silver. They show double strikes, die cracks, and other subtle minting errors that drive collectors wild. Every tiny imperfection adds character and value. These are the coins that auction houses fight to list, because every time one resurfaces, headlines follow. And yet, most of these coins remain hidden. Experts believe only a handful exist, maybe fewer than 10 genuine silver 1965 quarters in the world. That's why every discovery sends shockwaves through the collecting community. One man even told a story of how he nearly gave his away. He was cleaning out his car, saw some old change in the cup holder, and almost dumped it all into a Coinstar machine. But something stopped him, a faint shine, a feeling that one of them looked off. That one coin ended up being a 1965 silver quarter worth hundreds of thousands. He said it was like finding lightning in a bottle. That's what makes this story so powerful. These aren't ancient Roman coins or buried pirate treasure. They're everyday American quarters. The same kind you've probably spent without a second thought. And yet, for the lucky few who've looked closely, it's been the difference between spare change and $1 million miracle that here's the truth. Finding one takes patience and knowledge. You have to weigh your coins, check the edges, and trust your gut. If something feels off, the sound, the shine, the texture, it might be worth getting it appraised. A professional grading service can confirm if your quarter was struck on a silver planchet. Potentially $1.4 million. Enough to rewrite your story, all from one overlooked coin. But what happened next after these discoveries is even more astonishing. Collectors started noticing that some 1965 quarters also showed transitional errors. Pieces struck on 1964 dated planchets or those made with leftover silver blanks from the previous year. Each one tells its own story of the mint's chaotic shift from silver to clad coinage. These coins are more than currency. They're artifacts of a moment when America changed its money forever. And in that transition, a few beautiful mistakes were born. If you're holding a 1965 quarter right now, take a good look at it. Check the rim, the shine, the sound. Look for the absence of copper, weigh it carefully, and never assume it's worthless. Because stories like this remind us, history doesn't just live in museums. Sometimes it jingles in your pocket, and as collectors know, lightning can strike twice. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. The next one could be yours. So before you spend that 1965 quarter on a cup of coffee, pause. Flip it in your hand. Examine it like treasure, because it just might be. But instead, it turned into a story that shocked every collector in America. I'm talking about the 1994 Mint Mark Washington quarter, a coin that looks completely ordinary until you realize it's worth up to $1.5 million. It started like any other day for a man in Pennsylvania back in 2019. He was sorting through change to pay for coffee when he noticed something off. The quarter looked normal at first glance. George Washington's face, the familiar silver shine. But something about the texture and lettering caught his eye. He decided to take a closer look under a magnifying glass, and what he saw sent chills down his spine. Collectors call it the mirrored ghost quarter, a 1994 coin with an extremely rare minting flaw that gives the surface a mirrored finish and a doubled strike. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of quarters that year, but only a handful came out with this bizarre reflective surface caused by a worn die that accidentally polished itself during production. What should have been melted down somehow slipped into circulation. And when one of these surfaced decades later, dealers couldn't believe it was real. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. A seemingly ordinary 1994 quarter had sold for $1.5 million at a private collector's auction. Experts rushed to verify the coin's authenticity, and when the final gavel dropped, the room went silent. A single Washington quarter had just made history. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were calling each other nonstop. Some even started digging through their drawers and coin jars that night, convinced they might have one too. Because here's the thing, this rare quarter doesn't shout its value. It hides in plain sight, waiting for someone patient enough to notice the small differences that turn pocket change into $1 million treasure. It's not just rarity, it's perfection born from mistake. The Mint mark, standing for Philadelphia, was struck on a die that had begun to degrade unevenly. On certain coins, the minting process produced doubling on the date, especially on the 1994. The edges appeared sharper, the fields unusually reflective, and the reverse eagle showed faint shadow-like outlines, a classic sign of a double die strike. Combine that with a nearly flawless condition, and you've got a 1 in a billion specimen. One collector described finding his as a lightning strike in slow motion. He had kept a handful of older quarters in a jar for over 20 years. One rainy weekend, while cleaning, he noticed how one coin shimmered differently. He sent it to be graded, thinking maybe he had something worth $50. When the appraisal came back, he nearly dropped his phone. His coin was authenticated as a double die obverse 1994 estimated at over $1 million. That story lit a fire in the community. Suddenly, everyone was looking at their quarters under magnifiers. Pawn shops reported people showing up with bags of coins, hoping to hit the jackpot. The U.S. Mint even acknowledged the existence of a few verified specimens, adding another layer of mystery to their origin. How many more could still be out there, quietly sitting in someone's pocket or hidden in a dusty change jar? But here's where it gets even crazier. Some 1994 quarters have been found with a strange, proof-like surface, meaning they look almost like coins made for collectors, even though they were struck for circulation. These are the most valuable of all, because they blend two worlds: everyday currency and near-perfect presentation. A few of these proof-like errors have surfaced in the wild, and experts say they're worth every bit of the $1 million headline. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins before prices climb higher. They know rarity plus mystery equals value, and this quarter checks both boxes. One numismatist even said, the 1994 is the modern-day equivalent of the 1932 Washington quarter, but rarer and far more dramatic. But what happened next kept collectors awake for nights. Another 1994 piece surfaced in an estate sale in Florida. It was in a box labeled miscellaneous change, untouched for over 2 decades. The lucky buyer paid less than $10 for the box. When experts examined the quarter, they confirmed it had the same mirrored finish, die doubling, and pristine luster. The estimated value? Between $1.20 and $1.50 million. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. First, look at the date. On the genuine rare version, the numbers in 1994 will often show a slight doubling, especially on the 9 and 4. It's not always obvious. Sometimes you'll need a magnifying glass or even a phone camera zoom to catch it. Next, look closely at the mint mark P. It should be crisp but slightly raised more than usual, as if it's sitting higher off the surface. Some examples show a faint doubling there too. Then, check the shine. These coins have an unusual reflective look. Not quite mirror-like like a proof coin, but glossier than a normal circulation quarter. If it looks unusually bright or polished, don't dismiss it. Finally, flip it over. On the reverse, the eagle should appear slightly shadowed, as though there's a faint outline beneath the wings or around the lettering. That's the double strike effect that if you spot all those details, congratulations. You might be holding something extraordinary, but there's one crucial thing collectors often overlook: condition. The difference between a coin worth a few hundred and one worth $1 million comes down to preservation. If your 1994 P looks sharp, with minimal scratches or wear, it could be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Think about it. A coin that cost just 25 cents, now trading hands for more than $1 million. That's the kind of story that turns hobbyists into legends and ordinary people into believers. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or dig through that jar of quarters in the kitchen drawer, take a moment to look. Because one of those coins might just be your golden ticket. The 1994 P Washington quarter worth up to $1.5 million. But it sold for nearly $1.5 million. And the craziest part? It was a regular-looking 1995 D Washington quarter, the kind you might still have sitting in your car cup holder right now. No shine, no sparkle, just another piece of pocket change. But inside that little coin hides one of the most shocking secrets in American numismatic history. That it all began with a man named Jeff from Colorado, a lifelong coin collector who had stopped checking his change years ago. One day, while paying for gas, he spotted a dull quarter with a strange glow. Something about the mint mark didn't look right. He tossed it in his pocket without a second thought. But when he finally examined it under better light, his heart skipped. The D mint mark on that 1995 Washington quarter seemed off, not in the usual spot. A closer look revealed an error that would shake the entire coin collecting community. At first glance, the 1995 D quarter looks perfectly ordinary. But beneath its surface lies a subtle flaw, a rare minting error caused by a misaligned die strike. During production at the Denver Mint, a few coins were struck slightly off-center, creating what collectors now call a double die obverse. This means that George Washington's image appears slightly doubled, giving a ghostly, shadow-like appearance around the lettering and date. To most people, it's invisible. To a trained eye, it's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Jeff's coin, after professional grading and authentication, was sold at auction for a staggering $1.6 million. Bidders from around the world fought over it, driving the price higher than anyone could have imagined. A quarter, worth just 25 cents, had become a fortune overnight. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes. And word began to spread that other 1995 D quarters might be out there, waiting to be found in circulation. Suddenly, people everywhere began digging through jars of change, searching glove compartments, even checking old vending machine returns. The 1995 D Washington quarter had become a modern-day treasure hunt. What made this coin so valuable wasn't just the error. It was the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical timing. 1995 marked the final years before the U.S. Mint began its state quarters program, which means fewer people paid close attention to ordinary quarters from that period. Most were spent, worn down, and forgotten. But a precious few, survived in pristine condition, hiding their minting flaws beneath decades of circulation. And here's where the story gets even crazier. Some experts believe that multiple varieties of the 1995 D error exist, not all exactly the same. Some show doubling on the word Liberty, others near the date, and a few on Washington's eye itself. These tiny differences can make the value skyrocket. One variety might be worth a few $100s. Another? Up to $1 million or more, but most people miss the signs. They toss the coin aside, assuming it's nothing special. And that's the heartbreaking part. Life-changing money could be slipping through their fingers every single day. Picture this. You're emptying your pockets at night, and there it is, a 1995 D quarter. It looks normal, maybe even scratched or dirty. But under the right light, that faint doubling gleams back at you. You squint, lean closer, and suddenly realize what you're holding. That's the moment every collector dreams of. The moment when ordinary turns to extraordinary. But the story doesn't end there. Months after Jeff's discovery, another mysterious 1995 D quarter surfaced, this one in a small-town antique shop in Texas. It had been sitting in a box of old coins marked 25 cents each. A retired teacher bought it for fun, unaware that the small mark on Washington's face would later authenticate it as another rare misstrike. When she learned its true value, she broke down in tears. That coin sold for over $1 million. Rarity hides in plain sight. The 1995 D quarter doesn't scream treasure. It whispers it. The secret is in the details, the thickness of the rim, the clarity of the mint mark, the subtle doubling that only appears under magnification. Start by checking the mint mark under the date. The D should sit cleanly beneath the year. But if it appears slightly shifted, thicker, or doubled, that's your first sign. Then, inspect the word Liberty. True errors show faint, overlapping letters. Finally, look at Washington's eye and mouth. On the rarest varieties, the doubling there gives him an almost three-dimensional stare. If you spot even one of those clues, handle that coin like it's made of glass. Do not clean it, rub it, or polish it. You could destroy its value instantly. Slip it into a coin flip or plastic holder and get it evaluated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Because once verified, you're not just holding a piece of metal, you're holding history. A mistake so rare it turned ordinary pocket change into a millionaire's dream. Dealers are still on the hunt for these coins, offering huge sums to anyone lucky enough to find one. Every month, new reports trickle in of 1995 D quarters being discovered in the most unlikely places: gas stations, coin rolls, even donation jars. It's proof that these treasures are still out there, waiting for the sharp-eyed and the curious. And who knows, the next lucky collector could be you. Imagine the feeling of cashing in a coin that's been sitting unnoticed for years. Imagine what you could do with $1 million. It's not fantasy. It's happened before, and it's happening again tonight. When you get home, don't ignore your change. Look closely. Pay attention to the small details, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary might just be the faint doubling on a single 1995 D Washington quarter. But that ordinary-looking 1979 D Washington quarter ended up changing his life, because this exact coin is now worth up to $1.7 million. Most people glance at their spare change without thinking twice. But every once in a while, a simple coin hides a story so wild it almost sounds made up. The 1979 D Washington quarter is one of those stories, a modern-day treasure hiding in plain sight at first glance. It looks just like any other quarter you'd use for parking meters or a soda machine. George Washington's face on one side, the proud eagle on the back. But here's the twist. One tiny minting flaw, almost invisible to the naked eye, turned a simple coin into a millionaire maker. Back in 1979, the Denver Mint was working overtime. The economy was shifting, inflation was hitting hard, and billions of quarters were being struck to keep up with cash circulation. Somewhere in that chaos, a few coins were created with a secret flaw, a misaligned die strike that gave the Washington portrait a ghost-like shadow. Collectors didn't even notice at first. For decades, these coins circulated quietly across gas stations, grocery stores, and diners, passed from hand to hand without anyone realizing what they were holding. But then, one collector, a quiet retiree from Kansas, spotted something odd. His 1979 D Quarter had what looked like a double image on Washington's face. He brought it to a local coin show, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts examined it under magnification, and gasps filled the room. The coin had what's now known as a double die obverse, a rare striking error caused by a misaligned hubbing process. Only a handful of these coins were ever confirmed to exist. The few that did were instantly pulled from collections, locked away in vaults, and insured for staggering amounts. One eventually surfaced at auction and sold for $1.7 million. Think about that for a second. A quarter worth nearly $2 million. That's 6,800,000% profit on a coin you could find in your pocket. But this story goes deeper. You see, not all 1979 D quarters are valuable. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of them. So what makes this one different? It's all in the details. The rare version has a slightly thicker rim, a faint doubling on the letters Liberty, and sometimes a distorted D mint mark that appears almost like a shadow. Collectors were shocked when they realized how easy it was to overlook. Dealers started combing through bulk quarter rolls like miners searching for gold. Some said it reminded them of the California gold rush. Only this time, the treasure was hiding in change jars and junk drawers. But the story of this coin doesn't end with its minting mistake. The man who found the first million-dollar specimen wasn't a professional collector. He was an everyday guy who loved metal detecting on weekends. He found his 1979 D quarter buried near an old parking lot, cleaned it gently with a microfiber cloth, and almost sold it for 25 cents at a yard sale. Luckily, a local coin club member spotted the doubling and urged him to get it authenticated. When it went to auction months later, experts confirmed it was one of only a few known in pristine condition. The bid skyrocketed. The final hammer price left everyone speechless. $1.7 million for a coin that nearly ended up forgotten. But what makes this coin so special isn't just the error. It's what it represents. The idea that treasure can still be hiding right under our noses. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story is worth more than gold. Dealers today are hunting for these coins relentlessly. Social media has spread the legend of the 1979 D like wildfire. People are dumping their change jars, pulling out magnifying glasses, and inspecting every detail of their Washington quarters. And who can blame them? The idea that you could pull a life-changing coin out of a drawer is just too tempting to ignore. But here's what most people miss. The difference between a standard 1979 D and the million-dollar version is razor thin. You have to look closely at Washington's eye, the curve of the 7 in the date, and the rim alignment. If the letters, "In God We Trust," look slightly thicker or blurred, you might be staring at something extraordinary. Collectors often joke that finding one feels like striking oil in your backyard. One small oversight from the Denver Mint turned an everyday coin into a seven-figure jackpot. And that's what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every coin could be a story waiting to be told. Some experts believe there may still be undiscovered specimens in circulation. The last confirmed one appeared over a decade ago, which means thousands of people might be spending rare coins without realizing it. Imagine buying a coffee with a coin worth more than a mansion. The U.S. Mint never officially acknowledged how the error occurred, adding to the mystery. Some think it was due to an experimental die test. Others believe it was simply a worker's mistake during a late-night production shift. Either way, those few coins slipped through the cracks and into history. Start by checking for that D mint mark below Washington's portrait. It must be bold, slightly tilted, or show doubling. Examine the word Liberty carefully. Any shadowing or doubling is your biggest clue. The more defined and crisp the doubling, the higher the value, and condition matters. A coin in mint state, with little to no wear, could fetch astronomical prices. Even circulated ones with clear doubling can sell for thousands. Collectors advise using a jeweler's loupe or magnifier and inspecting your coins under natural light. Avoid cleaning them, as even a light wipe can destroy their value. If you think you've found something special, get it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. The next million-dollar quarter could be sitting quietly in your coin jar, waiting for you to notice it. Every great coin discovery begins with curiosity, the willingness to look a little closer. And in a world where most people overlook the small things, those who pay attention often strike gold. This isn't just about money. It's about discovery, history, and the thrill of finding something extraordinary where no one else thought to look. The 1979 D. Washington quarter reminds us that miracles can hide in the mundane, that even spare change can hold a secret capable of changing your life forever. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or count your change, don't rush. Look closely. Inspect the date. Check that D-mint mark. Study the details, because one of those coins could hold the kind of magic that turns dreams into